Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to tell you a story. It's a missing persons case, along with a divorce case, along with a child custody case. It's like all three wrapped in one. And I'll tell you, the call came from, we'll call him Joe from Hawaii. He actually called me from Hawaii. He was married for about 15 years. He had two kids, about 10 and 12 years old. He wakes up one morning and his kids and his wife are gone. So, of course he panics. He's wondering what's going on. He calls the police. The police advise him, well, there's no criminality in what she's done. She's just left. And it wasn't under suspicious circumstances as far as a crime being committed. So the police really couldn't do anything for him. He was a little concerned because his marriage is on the rocks. They were talking about divorce, but nobody went out and got an attorney. Nobody really did anything to initiate the divorce. They just knew they had to work on some things, and he actually thought they were working on them. So he wakes up that morning. His kids and his wife are gone. The first thing he does is he calls a lot of his friends, a lot of her friends in Hawaii, trying to find out, maybe she just got upset and went to a friend's house. He's coming up blank. So he spends the next 3 weeks doing his own investigation work in Hawaii. And, driving to friends' house, making sure they're not lying to him because maybe she's there and the friends are saying they're actually not there. He does all of that. He does everything he knows he can do. He called an attorney, and the attorney's like, well, you have to find her so that we can serve her, so that we can get the child custody and the divorce thing rolling to get, temporary orders in place or everything they need to get in place so he can actually see his kids. Now, when he calls me, he actually tells me that he thinks his wife is not in Hawaii. After he does all his preliminary investigation, he tells me, you know what? I think she's not here. And I go, well, where do you think she is? He says, well, she has some friends in friends in Texas, I know. So I like to check, places in Texas. So he gives me a list of names of some of her friends. I track them down. I do surveillance on a lot of her friends' homes, and I'm coming up with nothing. He's starting to get worried at this point because now he's thinking, God, maybe something bad happened to her. Maybe, there's some criminality amongst all this because everybody they know has not heard from her yet. So what I told him to do at this point is I said, listen, you need to go back, look at the phone records over the last 60, 90 days, and especially pay attention to phone records and numbers just prior to her leaving. So he retrieves that information, and he gives me about 10 different phone numbers that all originate in Texas. So I start back tracing them, and I get addresses and names for them. Some he recognizes and some he does not. There was one man's name that one of the phone numbers came back to. He had no clue on who it was. So I said, okay, let's do process of elimination. The people you do know, let's make sure she's not there. Now, he didn't want to call any of these people because if she was hiding from him, he didn't want her to know that he knew where she was. So we did surveillances on 6 different houses of some of the numbers he was familiar with. Came up with absolutely nothing. So I backtraced this one phone number, and it came back to a male. He did live in Texas, and he lived in a city very close to where I originate from. So we started to do surveillance on that house. Now, we did it, from what my memory can recollect, we did it on a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. No activity at the house, no car in front of the house, nothing. Called him back and said, look, we've been on this for 3 days, and there's nothing here as far as activity goes. But I said, listen, this is the only strong lead we've had. We've already eliminated all her friends in Hawaii. We eliminated her friends here in Texas, and we knew she wasn't staying with any of her friends here. So the only strong lead we had was this one phone number and this one individual that he's never heard of. That was a man that she was consistently calling before she left. So I told him, listen, we need to stick on this. So we went back I think we did a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We skipped a Monday, went back on Tuesday, still nobody there. Went back on Wednesday, and there was a white Ford truck in the driveway. Now, at this point, I can't go knocking on the door because if she is trying to conceal herself from her husband, I don't want her to know that he knows where she is. So we conducted surveillance, sound that house for hours. About 7 o'clock that night, I see a man come out, I see a female, and I compared that to the picture the client gave me. It was her, and I see his 2 children. They all get in a Ford pickup truck, and they go to a restaurant to get something to eat, which is perfect for me because I can get videos of these people. Followed them to this place, they all get out of the truck, and I'm videotaping. Now, as they're walking into the restaurant, I'm noticing that my client's wife and this man are holding hands with his children in tow. So I'm videotaping all this because this is very relevant to his case. Because what it's looking like at this point is that she got up in the middle of the night, took the kids, flew to Texas to be with her boyfriend. Now, that's what all the evidence is pointing to at this point. What the concern was in this case and why he needed to find her was because there's jurisdictional issues regarding how long kids are in a certain state, and it varies, and I'm not an attorney, but from what he was telling me, I've got 60 days, because after 60 days, the jurisdiction falls wherever she is. Because when she left, there was no court papers in effect at all. So 4 weeks had already passed by. We know where she is. I call him back. Anyway, they come out of the restaurant. They end up going back to his place. They all get out of the car. They all go inside. Got all of it on video. At that point, I call him. He gets hold of his attorneys in Hawaii, processes the paperwork, emails it to me. I then contact one of my process servers. And the very next morning, let me back up a little bit. I didn't want to lose these people, so overnight we stayed on surveillance on the residence, making sure no one left, making sure if someone did leave, who was in the house, who wasn't in the house. So we were on a time crunch here because the lawyer's preparing the paperwork, and the whole time we're locking down the house. We want to make sure that people don't leave, and we might want to make sure that when the process server knocks on that door, that she's there. So 2 days go by of 24-hour surveillance on this home to making sure she doesn't leave and she's actually there. 2 days go by. They email me the paperwork. Process server knocks on the door, and I'm videotaping all this, by the way. She answers the door, which is very odd because it wasn't even her house, it was his house. She answers the door, she gets served. And the look on her face, you could tell she thought she could never be found. And we ended up finding her. Now, after she was served, she had to go back to Hawaii, and they had the court hearing there on the custody of the children. He ended up getting 50-50 custody. She had to stay in Hawaii. Now, she could leave Hawaii, but she couldn't take the kids with her. So the client was very happy. I made a couple videos back on why PIs are needed. PIs are needed in these kind of cases where there's no criminality and police cannot get involved in a civil matter. You need to hire a private investigator in order to do these things so that you can get the civil legal process working. Client stayed in touch with me for years on this. He was so happy to get his kids back. I will tell you, in today's environment, my clientele is 50% women, 50% men. Prior to this, years ago, it was like 80% female, 20% men. But times are changing now, and I'm kind of seeing a change in fathers actually fighting for custody, because I think back in the day, they didn't do that much. You're starting to see fathers take more responsibility in fatherhood, which is very refreshing to see. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. My name is Dave Watson with Watson PI Services, helping people navigate through difficult situations.